And we are live, Jenna. What is happening?
Oh, Tony, I am so thrilled that you asked me to come on and join you because
Oh my
food
gosh.
photography is one of my favorite subjects and we get to talk about it for a while. So
I
thank
mean,
you.
I'm pretty sure it's the only subject, right?
Right. Absolutely. Now that you find the right people to talk to about it, like my husband wouldn't think so.
Exactly. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. For those of you who are just joining us here in the chat, I can see y'all showing up. We're so glad to have you here today. And just as a point of introduction, many of you probably already know her because she is a phenomenal food photographer. Recently hosted the Mastering the Art of Food Photography Summit, which I participated in, and I know a lot of you did as well. She is a friend, she is a colleague, and I'm so proud to introduce to you Jena Carlin. So, Jena, thank you for joining us here today.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
of course, of course. And tell everybody where you're coming to from this morning.
Yeah, Auburndale, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
All
up in the house.
700 people. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And
In
you're
the
in your studio, yeah?
Yep, I'm in my studio. Yeah, I just recently moved back to my hometown. So this studio was actually it's on the main street of Auburndale, one of the only buildings here, and it was an antique store. So I visited it often, and some of the props I own now have made it back home. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
and anybody who hasn't followed you on Instagram, she's at the Little Rusted Ladle, at Little Rusted Ladle. I've got it linked down below in the description box so you can go hop on over to her Instagram. But you, a couple weeks ago, although I think it was actually in your Facebook group, you did a little kind of mini tour of your props area. And I think all of us were like, what? You
Yeah,
you have a couple props, girl?
yeah, the traction from that post actually was like eye-opening, right? Because it's truly the like what I love most about food photography are all of the props, and that is why I do my own set styling. I do not do my own food styling, but I do my own set styling along with the photography. And um, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know not every like you guys don't have this. But yeah, no,
You're
I
like, this
love
isn't normal. Not
normal.
everybody.
Oh,
Well, and the way
I
you
have
had
to
it,
talk about.
I don't know, where is that video posted if folks want to go check that
It,
out?
it's actually in my, I think it's in my highlights on Instagram, and then it's
Okay.
also in the Facebook group, I believe, as well.
Okay.
Just because, like, yeah, I love talking about props. So, in any, like, message me whatever you want to know, like, I will tell you. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I loved it. Well, definitely folks can go check that out and go appreciate some beautiful props, color coordinated the whole bit. But looks like we've got some great some of our familiar faces here in the house. Of course,
Yay.
Paul, good old Paul, keeping track of the notes for me today. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Eduardo coming to us from Brazil, Amit from India. Let's see who else we've got. Carolyn from Dubai. I always love all these names popping up. So thank you for joining us here this morning. Let's think. Well, okay, here's a good question because I always like to start with a little question to get everybody excited and to get some feedback from those who are watching with us. So I feel like watching your work over the years. Here's a funny story, Jena. So not many moons ago, but a number of years ago, I taught local, like just small little food photography workshops, kind of cell phone shooters and things like that at a local resort. And I had my little like notes and my little agenda and handouts and everything. And I had found one last week that was shoved into an old book that I would sometimes bring to these workshops. And it was so fun to see because at the bottom of it, I always had like, here's Instagrammers to follow. And again, this was like, I don't know, 4 years ago, 3 years ago that I was doing this. And there it was, Little Rusted Ladle down at the bottom. I was like, I've been following Jena for a while.
Oh my gosh, I that means so much. And the first interaction I had with you too, like I was looking for some video lights and
Yeah.
stumbled across your YouTube channel, and I was just like, oh my God, what light is she using on her face? I just love it. Like, just like your whole channel looks so professional. So immediately I was
Thank
like,
you.
well, I have to know what Joni's doing.
I
Like,
have
what
to know
lights
what's
are you
going
using?
on here.
Yeah, because like, I was very well versed in in strobe, but I was like, I don't know what to do I was doing research on video lights. So I was, and then I messaged you or in the comments, I wrote a comment, and then you like knew who I was, and I
Yeah.
was blown away.
Totally. I remember I was a little starstruck. So I was like, oh my gosh, this girl whose work is beautiful and who I follow on Instagram. So that just made me smile. I was like, wow, so many years ago, now here we are. But all
Yes.
that to say, one of the things in the years of following your work that I have definitely picked up on, and I feel like anybody who looks at your work and who is looking at you right now can tell that you have an appreciation for kind of more organic feeling things, as well as the color green. I feel like the color green is definitely, and like all the green in a good wide variety of its iterations in terms of the hue. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. But for those of you who are in the comment section, oh, Dana says hi, Joni and Jenna. What's up, Dana? For those of you who are in the comment section, leave a comment with like, what is your signature color? Like if like Jenna's, I've got to think definitely is in that green neighborhood. But for those of you who are here with us today, tell us in the comment section, what is your signature color? I'll be curious to see if there's some themes running in here. But Jenna, why the color green? Why do I see it so much in your feed and what you wear in your space right now? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, so green, when I started thinking about what colors I wanted to represent my brand and what I do, I always come back to um, green because of the earth, right? Like if you were thinking about where produce comes from, like a lot of it has green and it represents the earth and all these natural things, like you mentioned, like being more on the organic side of things and just letting the process flow and storytelling. That is how it came to be. And I thought just like a simple concept was, all of this green, I'm going to be photographing it anyway. So I need to tie it in somewhere, right? So it's all of those conceptual ideas, but also practical. So
Yeah. Because
yeah.
that's going to be a repeated theme in terms of subject matter. So
Especially
really,
where I'm located in
mm,
Wisconsin, green is everywhere. Like it's kind of like Ireland. It's just green. So, you
yeah.
know, yeah.
It's very representative of you. And I think that that's such a great point, in talking with other photographers here on the channel and just in conversations, when we're kind of, and I think the conversation with Kimberly a couple weeks ago and finding that signature style of our own, that color is certainly a part of that. And just looking around at the colors around you and how they influence your aesthetic. So I think that's such a great point. Oh, we've got some love for gold. Jeremiah loves gold. He
Yes.
loves blue all
Yay.
day. Uh,
Yes.
are there colors, Jenna, that you find harder for you to work with, that maybe
Oh,
challenge
yes.
you?
Absolutely. And you know what? I realized when I did that video, I just did that quick video of my prop area. And when I was going through it and talking about it, and like you said, there's color coordinating aspects to it all. There's a lot of green. And actually, I decorate my whole studio with my green props. And then so that area is kind of thin in the prop area. But pink, like I have like the smallest amount of pink ever for props. And I was like, well, that because you know who did a challenge? I think it was Eva and B
Mm-hmm.
did it. I did a color challenge not too long ago, and that made me think about it too, because that was happening the same time as I was going through my props, and I was like, oh, this is like clear to me. Like I don't buy pink props. I don't shoot with pink that often. And
Yeah.
my next test shoot I do that's only for me is gonna be pink. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go after it. I don't know how it'll work or like tie into my portfolio,
Yeah. But it's
but
worth that adventure because you
that
never know what
exercise.
you're going to stumble
Yeah,
on. And
right.
two, from a complementary color standpoint, I mean, pink and definitely certain hues of green go together
Yeah.
beautifully. So hopefully that'll give you a launching point there. Oh, Jessica says she loves pink. And Amelia loves earth tones. I love the earth
Yes.
tones
Oh,
too.
yeah.
A lot of
There's
people say browns or it can be challenging, especially brown food,
oh,
right? And so much of
yeah,
food is in kind of the brown color scheme, but
yeah.
I
My
feel like you just really extract the texture, and that can be such a fun
yeah.
exercise.
The brown part doesn't bother me, but I always try to like, what can I do to, enhance the image, right? Because
Hmm.
I actually just did a shoot. It was all on steak. It was
Oh,
like a whole
that's a
3 days.
challenge.
Yeah, right. Well, it's beautiful, and a lot of it was pink, actually.
Oh, that's true.
but
Yeah.
but there's a lot of brown to work with, and the challenge, like what I have done in the past is always like spruced it up with herbs and like colorful vegetables. So we had like fall themes and summer themes because they needed these throughout the year. And like a big part of it for the client was, okay, this is cool, but we can't overpower the meat. Like the meat is
Mm,
the hero. So
yeah.
like introducing these things as more like intricate details rather than like flooding it with other colors to really kind of bring out, and lighting, and definitely lighting the brown meat is the key there. And also
Yeah.
those little
What
kind of,
kind of light would you, for somebody, I'm sure there's plenty of folks who are here with us today in the feed who have been challenged by photographing, whether it's cooked meat or raw meat.
yeah.
From a lighting perspective, what would you say is a good direction to go in?
So I found that really playing with light and shadow within the meat itself is really gonna help you. Like there's one image I did of like a tumble of raw steaks,
Mhm.
and like the top one was lit really well. The middle one was not, because it was like kind of like folded over. So it had a lot of shadow to it. And then like the third one. So just creating that interest within it
Mm,
using light and shadow. And then I also like, I usually have my light pretty low
okay.
and a big light. I always use a really big soft. I shouldn't say always. I a
Yeah.
lot of times use a really big softbox
Yeah.
and put it low and angle it up high, and just
Oh.
have that light kind of like just kind of flood over, but also scrape. So it's soft, but it
Yeah.
also scrapes the textures. So scraping
Oh,
the surface
wow.
with
So
with
kind of, but that makes sense now looking at your work, because I definitely think that is something that stood out is sort of, I mean, I don't know if I would call it the drama of it, but for sure, like coming in at that atypical angle, right? Because I think a lot of times we're coming in maybe at just that perpendicular, or we're coming in at it slightly
right,
angled, but by
the
kind of
sun.
tilting it
Yeah,
up. I
right.
like that. Oh, that is a good tip for the all of y'all out there playing with your soft boxes today. Try tilting it up. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll call it the Jena angle.
I love it. Yeah. And be careful about that, because sometimes it will, just an extra tip on that, because
Mhm.
that will oftentimes make the one side of your surface pretty bright. So
Mm,
then I do a really thin black foam core just to like vignette that
gotcha.
light. So
Block that lower
yeah.
corner
And then you're
if you've got a
nailing.
hot spot on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Great tip,
And then
everybody.
cucaloris, of course, but now we're getting into way too much detail. But
I
cucaloris if you want to.
I love it. And so, just as a heads up, we will definitely do some Q&A at the end. So definitely save your questions. And I've got the super helpful Paul Gregory on hand to keep track of those notes as well. But yeah, we'll definitely open it up for the Q&A at the end. But what we wanted to talk about here today, and what I'm so excited to hear more from you, because you recently hosted the Mastering the Art of Food Photography Summit, which how many speakers were there?
There are 28 speakers.
28 speakers. I mean, it was massive. And I
Yeah.
feel like the impact and the feeling and the energy across the food photography industry was so positive, so connected. It was something that I hadn't seen done in this industry. And I know connected me to a lot of new people who I didn't know, opened up doors, made connections. But I mean, you of course, organized it and were experienced kind of all the behind the scenes of it and all the conversations that you had with all those different speakers. And so I was like, oh, Jena definitely took some big takeaways from this, I am sure. And so we chatted a little bit about it, but I was hoping that we could go through and kind of talk about what are some of the things from a perspective of here we are, 2020, weirdest year that I've ever lived through, and a strange time, but at the same time, a really great time to be a food photographer. But you definitely had some surprises, and so we're going to go through these major themes, these things that people took away, the things that you took away and saw, that food photographers need, and the things that are important to us here in 2020. And so so the very first kind of big surprise, it seems, had to do with just who showed up.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
did show up? Were there people from all over the world?
Oh my gosh. Dama, I will have to mention too. She is my project manager on this. Dama is amazing. And yeah, she confirmed with me yesterday that over 100 countries were involved in the summit. So she knows all the stats. So like,
Yeah.
um, of course, I was just overjoyed with how many people were attending and asking questions and getting involved. But like, my biggest surprise, I would say, is that in addition to how generous and lovely people in this industry are,
Mm.
as far as experts and the people attending. Like, I'm so, I think, used to seeing on the internet so much negativity, and there was hardly, I will say, hardly any of that. I think I had like two like surprise, not so great comments, but like over flooded with like people that it meant so much to them.
Yeah.
Like after one important day during the summit, like I messaged you, like I just couldn't believe um, how much food, like I know how much food photography means to me, but I
Mhm.
had no idea it meant the same for so many other people, and more, frankly. Like it was helping them through some hard times, or giving them like a happy outlook and something to work towards. And a lot of people were stuck in their homes, and um, if they're creative and need to create, like this was something really valuable to them. And to learn from 28 experts, they were thrilled.
Yeah,
So
and you're right. That point of, I mean, I didn't get to watch all the sessions because there was just like so much content too that you generated through the summit. But I mean, definitely watching some of those sessions. I mean, I learned so much. Like, Tosh from Food I Fancy backgrounds, listening to her, and how she got in like her live demonstration of creating backgrounds, and Elle Simone Scott, and I mean, there's just so many talented people, and certainly people who I generally connect with. I mean, I've done a lot with Rachel from Two Love Studio, and B Lubis, but like it was so cool to see how much larger the industry is, because I think sometimes we can get very siloed in our own little bubbles in our own little world. So it was so wonderful how you brought such a great group of people together. So, but yeah, I mean, the global reach of the event, and I mean, even just the global reach of, what we're doing now, it's wildly exciting to
yes.
see how food photography has taken over the world, Jenna.
Yeah, in our world, it sure has.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. So, okay, so that was so kind of point number one, surprise number one was just the global reach and the amount of talent and generosity. Number two was the importance of community. Well, how was that? How was that a surprise for you?
Um, I will actually frame this within my whole career, because I think it really ties back to like creating the summit. I kind of was looking at it. So in my past, I went to art school. I was around a lot of creative people. I went to work at a lot of studios, and I was around massive amounts of creative people. And then I moved back home, and I didn't realize how much I would miss that like connection between just being able to talk about photography in general, or things that are on your mind. And so this food summit was in a way for me to get connected more with food photographers. Like in the past, it was more about product photography and all photography. Um, but but yeah, so the summit really brought back that. that urge I had to talk about photography with other creatives, because that is so important in scaling your business. It's
Mm.
something that I think a lot of people don't think about, especially as artists, because we're thinking like I have to create everything myself, and I can't have no other influences, and it has to be done on my own. Like, I mean, have you thought that way?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to think you've
Absolutely.
got to recreate the wheel every time.
Yeah, right. Or if I get, or if someone reaches out to me about a like, or just like you don't feel like you're earning it on your own sort of thing. But absolutely, like networking can be such a powerful thing. And knowing that when you're like, it's really just about friendships when it comes down to it. Like, I used to think networking was such a kind of a weird kind of negative word, or only for the
Mm,
for lawyers and business people,
yeah,
right? Like, I just kind of was like,
totally. That's what
networking.
salespeople do.
Yeah, that's what salespeople do. So I'm like, networking, mm-mm. No, but I realized I had been networking my whole life.
Yeah. Well, and it's not, I
Friendship.
mean, yeah, if you take away sort of the connotation and the loaded sort of topic of networking and you just say the importance of connecting with other people who do what you do and understand what you're going through and who can say, yeah, that's normal, or, oh, no, that's not normal. Because, how many times do we come across, maybe a client situation or a
Mhm.
photo shoot approaching something you've never done before, and you're like, "Eh, is this what everybody experiences? Is somebody
Right.
else going through this? Is this normal?" Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we just need to hear, oh, yeah, the way that that client's treating you, that's not normal.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Oh my God, I have so many
So many
examples
stories, right?
now. Yeah. I'll let you say it. So many. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so creating that space, I felt like that was such a cool thing to see through the summit is how you created space for people to connect with one another and make new
Mhm.
friends and make connections. And the Facebook group that you created with the summit, it's been really, really cool to see, yeah, people posting questions and posting work and getting feedback. And so I'm optimistic that you'll continue
Yeah. Yeah.
to support that community interaction.
Yeah, definitely. The Facebook group has been just, there's just so much talent out there that like you mentioned, like you don't you we're in these silos that we don't like we don't understand how much talent is really out there, or how many people
Yeah.
need help with direction about certain nuances about their business, not necessarily, could be anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of superstars in that group for sure. I'm just thrilled that people are actually like putting themselves out there, because I think a lot of times we can get like, oh, here's an image, and that's it. Like, but to
Yeah.
like tell their story, here's an image, here's why I created it.
Yeah.
I love your feedback. I would love, you know, a critique on it. Like, those are the people that are getting massive like return back on that. So the more you put in, the more you'll get out. So
So
I
true.
encourage everyone to like just find, whether it's food photography or not, just like find a group that is gonna help support you in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing that I do hear from people, and I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it, I've experienced it, is when you do try to, sometimes you try to network with people who are in your same space and they're not really open to that. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you do, Jenna? What do you do when there's somebody? Because I feel like I've had the conversation with people who, because I definitely always encourage not only just on the internet, but also just in your own like
Yeah.
geographical location, which is a little challenging, obviously, in the current times. But there's definitely a handful of photographers here in Phoenix who I connect with and I refer work out to, and that
Mhm.
we collaborate and we connect.
Yeah.
But sometimes people aren't always open to that and they get kind of that competitive thing going on. So what's your
Yeah.
recommendation if somebody reaches out to somebody and they don't want to reciprocate?
Well, the big thing is just to not take it to heart. Like, I think all of us are very we put ourselves out there, and
Mhm.
then when we are getting the of the wanted response, right, we feel discouraged, and then maybe we won't reach out again to anyone else. But I'm here to tell you that I've reached out to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and out of the, I don't know, maybe I would say probably like 35 people I've reached out to, 28 said yes for the summit. Just like, if
Right.
you're like, there's just keep you'll find those people that want to be involved and are excited about community over competition. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
find those people,
Yeah.
and so and when you do find those people, find out who those people are hanging out with, right?
Yeah.
Like those
It
are,
expands that circle
yeah,
out further. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So
Don't get
don't
it.
be discouraged. And the same thing goes for, connecting with any kind of people, whether that be potential colleagues as well as potential clients. You're going to get a lot of no's, but it's showing up and continuing to persist for the yes that ultimately is what
Yeah,
pays off.
yes,
I love
definitely.
it. All right, number three thing that you picked up on, and this is a hot button, and I feel like this is something that I know that Christina Peters, who is also a part
Oh,
of the summit and who I interviewed a
mhm.
couple weeks ago, would definitely say, absolutely, this is a
Oh,
problem.
yeah,
Is that lots of folks are undercharging for their services?
yeah.
How did you see this? How did this kind of end up on your radar through the course of the summit?
Well, the certain questions that people were asking, like I knew that I needed some experts to talk about pricing. Carl Taylor did a lot, which was awesome because
Yes.
he's such a high-end commercial photographer. So, like I don't, we're not here to give mediocre advice. We're here to give like, this is what people can do. Don't sell yourself short. And I also talked with some of the people directly just to kind of have these conversations of what currently are you charging, that sort of things. I blown away by how little people are charging and thinking it's okay. Like it's just not okay. It's
Yeah.
like the particular individual I was talking to, work was exceptional, like really,
Yeah.
really good, very strong portfolio. And not only was the pricing so low, she also like broke it up into hourly, which I do like, please put in a day rate.
Yeah.
Like, can we start with a day rate always? And
Yeah.
then maybe half day if it has to be. But
Mhm.
like broke it down hourly, but so the pricing was so low. I don't know. I don't think she even included like the retouching
Yeah.
hourly part of it. It was just like showing up for the shoot is what she was getting paid for. And also like the so not only thinking about price but thinking about how much you're delivering to someone
Mhm.
in that amount of
Mhm.
time.
Right.
And I think people also will get taken advantage of if they're not putting in their estimates how many images they are going to create, because if
Mhm.
you don't put that in, they're going to ask for more, and the truthfully you're going to do less awesome work, right? Because you have
Right.
your list went up in the moment.
Yeah.
And that still happens to me, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
people will still be like, okay, great, this shot is what we need, but I still need this shot with the
Right.
fork in 5 other places. I was like, that's now
That's
we're
not what
talking
we
five.
talked about.
Yeah, one shot has turned into 5 shots, and now it's
Yeah.
taking 6 hours. Like there's
Yes.
like certain conversations that need to, so not only in the estimate part, but like also people need to be informed on how to talk to clients on how, like, when is it appropriate to bring up the overtime question,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And like there's just so many nuances that I think people just get stuck thinking like, oh, this is what I estimated, this is what I have to do no matter what. But the truth
Mhm.
is they are asking more of you than initially planned, and that's why it is an estimate and not like a contract. Like, well, make sure in the fine print you list like these are estimated. There's so
Yeah.
just like so much to
There's a lot
tackle
to
in that.
pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for people to do their research and think about all the money that they are making off of your image.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about usage, right? Like
Mhm.
that is I love the way Carl talked about it as a dark art. I was like,
Yes.
when he said that
Yes.
those words, I was like, it is. Like
It
there's
is because the reality of, what the coffee shop around the corner and when they post that image on Instagram versus Coca-Cola posting it in Times Square is how much money is that company making off the use of those images and what is the impact of that? Because yes, the image is the same. Yes, the amount of work that you put in is the same, but the value of that artwork in terms of revenue, from an advertising perspective, is very different. And so that's why, when I teach pricing through my full-time framework course, that is a huge part of understanding, like, how are you gauging, who that client is, what's the size of that client, how do you charge commensurate with that exposure and that usage. So I think that's a great point. But what I felt, and my heart was definitely right there with you when you said, the person who you are kind of referencing who is undercharging, you're looking at their portfolio and you're like, this is fantastic work. This is high quality, like, regardless of all these other nuances of pricing, like, this person's just not even like in the ballpark of being able
Yeah.
to see that their work is valuable. And so,
Mhm.
for those photographers who are there, who are with us right now, who, and I mean, I am guilty of this as well, looking at my own work and going, it's just, I don't love this. Or, you are your own worst critic. So, for you, Jena, when you've been in those moments, when you look at your work and you're like, oh, I just don't love it, or really, like, should I charge? Because there is a certain point, I think, that in your career that you get to this point where you're able to step back from the work and feel a little less personally
Mhm.
involved in it and be a bit
Yeah.
more objective about it. But what would be your advice to somebody who, maybe knows in the back of their head that they are undercharging, but also at the same time is not, doesn't see their work for what it is? What would you recommend they do to help build that confidence?
Well, I honestly, like, if they're totally unsure, um, I would reach out to people that of opinions that matter to you. Like, not just anyone and everyone. Please don't do that. That's
Right.
not great. But to to like think about someone that you respect, like, that they have a really great artistic eye. You were drawn to their work for certain reasons, and you trust their opinion because they've been in the industry, or they're an art director, or anything. I would actually, um, I would just get a little bit more research on that
Hmm.
before, um, because then maybe there are things, that some tweaks that you can make, and then you'll, like, maybe, well, I also encourage you to, like, work with the portfolio you have too, because there's so many of us that are like, I'll reach out to this client when I have
Right.
5 more images on this. Like, I won't do it, but until then. So some really great advice I got from a colleague of mine, Kevin Netz. He's an absolutely amazing photographer in Milwaukee, and um, I was I was working with him, and he like, I was showing him my portfolio, exactly what I'm telling you to do. I was showing him my portfolio, getting feedback. Just encourage everyone to do that. It's so rewarding, and it will help, you know, move you along, because then you start thinking about things you don't normally think about, and you're not going to get there unless you're reaching out to people,
Yeah.
because it's not on your radar. But he told me, he's like, you know, work with the portfolio you have, and then, like, just go for it, you
Hmm.
know, because also, that thing that William said during the summit too, like, he one of his first jobs, this was like a huge takeaway for me, and I've seen it happen, is where he was telling me about one of his first clients, and it was for Nestle, and he did this amazing work, but there was one image that he was like, oh, this could have been better in, like, some way or another.
Hmm.
And but he was so damn proud of, like, everything else. But
Yeah.
he pointed out, because he felt like he needed to point it out to the client, like, I don't want them to think this is my best thing, like,
Yeah. You get
whatever. So
self-conscious about it.
self-conscious about it. So he brought it up, and he said, well, this could have been, uh, maybe this wasn't the strongest, but he's like, in that instant, like, the way the client reacted to the rest of the work
Hmm.
was thinking there was something wrong with it.
Oh.
Right?
Don't
So,
shoot yourself in the foot, man.
right? Right? So, because the rest of the work was so strong. So,
Yeah.
um, when you're reaching out to people, like, don't point out what you think is wrong. Like,
Yeah.
let them just let them tell you what they think, and either
Yeah.
like take it with a grain of salt. Like it could be good advice, could be bad advice, but like, and sometimes it will hurt, right? I've been
Yeah.
hurts,
Oh,
but
for sure. But
yeah,
I think that that's a part of that growing process. I mean, this reminds me
absolutely.
of one of the things, and this is probably such a random thing to reference, but I think so much of, who we are, of course, and how we show up in the world is very much a product of people we were raised by and things that we learned as kids. And so I had this really intense choir director who I still owe so much to now here 20 years after high school graduation, but one of the things that was so important in the performing arts was that if you mess up, don't point it out. Just keep performing. Like if you skip a line, or if you accidentally trip while you're dancing, or if you sing something off key, don't twist your face and get all weird. And so in that same sort of way, if you take a picture of something, like, okay, take that as a mental note and I can do better next time, right? But also too, in those moments, in photography, and especially when working with clients, there's been work that I've created that I don't love, and I'm like, gosh, I really would have done this differently, but it's exactly what the client wanted and they're over the moon. So I may not love this image, but that doesn't mean that it's not exactly what they wanted and effective for the purposes that they intended.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So definitely. Oh, Jessica said Carol Taylor was brutally honest.
Oh
Absolutely. He
yeah.
was.
Oh, you're so, oh my God.
And
So
for
good.
those of you who don't follow him, Carl Taylor is here on YouTube. He's got a library of so many great videos. You should definitely check it out. And, on that topic of portfolio reviews, because I do think that that is something that can be really helpful to get some outside perspective from a qualified person, like just like Jenna said, just putting it out to the internet and the humans of the randomness out there. You're gonna get randomness in terms of the feedback, but some really qualified good feedback, a really great resource. I think it just wrapped, but there are definitely the professional organizations out there in
Mhm.
terms of like the PPA and the APA, all these different organizations
Yeah.
will sometimes run portfolio review opportunities. The Palm Springs Photo Festival recently had an opportunity. Now, usually these are paid, like you were paying for a reviewer, but usually these are art directors, photo editors, people from magazines, photo agents, photo reps, like to give you that really helpful feedback so you can get that idea of, because it just breaks my heart when I see somebody whose work is so phenomenal and they're just like, well, I don't know, it's not that great. You're like, no, it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, right? Like, look at the way you did this, right? Yeah, like definitely, it's important to be able to also represent that when you're like, you got to represent confidence when you're reaching out to clients too. Like, it's not something to be bashful about. So, like, own your work.
Absolutely. For those of you who are looking for direction on pricing, for sure, I've got some things coming down the pike here in the next several weeks, but there's also a really great article that I like to share out. I'll be sure to post it in the comment section, in the description box of this video once we wrap up here, but it does a really great job of sort of breaking down what Jenna referenced as far as, day rates versus, overall project fees, talking about photographers' fees versus creative fees, licensing and usage and all that. So once we wrap up here live, I'll be sure to link that. It's a really great, I think, springboard into, getting familiar with what some of those terms mean and how you might want to orient your pricing. But so that was point number 3. So now moving on to number 4. You stated you kind of something you learned and you really took away from this was that importance of finding your unique voice and style. How did you kind of see this play out in the summit? How did this get on your
Well,
radar?
uh, I again, I reached out to people and kind of asked them what their like biggest struggle was. What are they looking forward to most within the summit, and what were their biggest takeaways? And a lot of people really connected with, trying to find their style, because I think that can be such a daunting thing. And I I want to give some advice to just like not there's like ways to do it, right? Like keep shooting, like, there's lots of ways to do it internally within food photography,
Mhm.
but also like if you think about it outside of food photography, like what makes you you? Like just aside from food photography, and think about that, and then think about how you can introduce that back in.
Mm.
So just for an example, this is something that took me, it takes years to kind of figure out your voice, or if you have help, it can take a shorter amount of time. But something that I like really take away from my history in, art and photography is I shot weddings for a while, and
Mm.
I absolutely loved it. And it's really made my work as a food photographer stand out because I'm able to really quickly like introduce lifestyle photography with food, and do it in a commercial sense where it's important to like the people, it's important to like the food, you can do it all at once, and get the results the clients want. So and posing people, right? Like there's a lot of things that I am a product or food photographer wouldn't be thinking about if they had to introduce people. So that's kind of something that's helped hone in my voice. And that, that's just like one part. So that's just an example of like something outside of food photography that you can bring into your work and help you stand out. And another thing I want to mention too is to not be afraid to narrow down what you do. I think there are like an overarching theme that I think happens to a lot of us, me included. You start out thinking you have to please everyone. And
Mm.
if you can't, like, you need to showcase everything on your portfolio, right? Like, you need
Yeah.
to show everything under the moon. But the truth
Yeah.
is, the more concise you are with your message, the more you will attract the brands that need you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, just can't say that enough because and me, I'm guilty of it too. Like,
Yeah.
uh, but truthfully, the more you narrow in on your message, the less competition there is because
Sure.
now you're just competing with, this kind of this a similar style
Mm-hmm.
rather than everyone, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
it's
I think
fun.
that,
Yeah.
just because when you are so very narrow in what you do and you're very focused,
Mhm.
that when somebody who wants that exact thing comes across what you do, they're like, this is the person for me. This is
Yeah.
exactly what I need. And so that makes that purchasing decision a lot
Oh,
easier because it's so clear, like, I
yeah.
mean, if somebody who wanted car photography showed up on my portfolio, well, there's no cars there. So they're going to go, yeah, this person doesn't shoot what I need, right?
Yeah.
So by having a very specific focus, but at the same time, this is a conversation that comes up a lot. Um, and I was actually a guest speaker in a college class last night. We did it all on Zoom. It was really
Oh,
fun and exciting. And the question came up is if you're still in that place of discovering and uncovering, because I think it takes time to really discover what's truly you and
mhm.
what's your focus and what you get into. But in that process there's a lot of experimentation. Is that okay to display that experimentation and those trying different things on and trying different things
Yeah.
out and having
So if
some
you're in,
range?
yeah, if you're in the beginning stages, absolutely, because you can see how people are reacting to your work,
Hmm.
and that might be some key takeaways for what people see in you already that you're
Hmm.
doing that you may not notice in yourself right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like subconsciously, you're doing it, and it's easy for people to key in on when they're not in your head, right? So
Yeah.
definitely when you're in the beginning stages, experiment, and even like throughout your career, experiment. But you don't always have to put it in your portfolio, right? Like
Yeah.
it could be something you hold on to for when there's someone that asks, "Well, do you also do this?" Yeah, here's something that I can also do. But the reason I think narrowing it down, like once you really like dive into what you love to do, like finding your voice will feel like um kind of like this brand awareness or more like awareness about what you want out of life in general.
Mm.
uh, Once you like find those passions, it's and you create the work for that, then all your clients all of a sudden become dream clients. Like
Yeah.
you're not doing the client work that you're not like, it was great for them, right? It's like all of a sudden, like you're just like absolutely loving your clients and your clients are loving you because it's the values align, and they just create magic together. So like really, I like that is like the ultimate goal for me and for like
Yeah.
I
I
was
say,
just
I don't know if I've arrived there yet.
no.
Because
Oh,
it
but
is, I think we're all, and we need to give ourselves space and time to get there because
yeah,
I think that, I mean, that's life, right? Like
yeah,
none
right.
of us
Small,
comes
right.
up having done any of this
True.
before. None of us comes out fully formed and perfect.
Oh,
And, so it's always a discovery and a refining process. But I love kind of that idea of just that awareness of what's happening around you and what, when you sit and you take that time and you go, okay, what does light me on fire? What does energize me? And what really drains me? And what
yeah.
gets me excited? And really paying attention to those impacts on you personally, that those will be steps in that journey that you may never fully arrive at, but it's that constant
But the
pursuit,
more you
right?
get there, the more you love your job. Like I already like love my job. I always have, but I will say like for a long time I was creating the work that I needed to create for clients.
Hmm.
I also did my own work for me on the side. Is super important. Everyone needs to do it. Um, but while also doing like both, it just like made that process longer.
Hmm.
So and but also by doing those client works too, like in the beginning, like you realize too what doesn't fulfill you
Yeah.
artistically and what does. So
Oh, for
but
sure.
it does take time. I went through a few exercises and can help other people kind of develop that sense of like who they are. And that's part of some training I'm going to be doing in the future. And we'll have a link there.
Ooh,
But
very exciting. Yeah, we'll
I get very passionate about it because I feel
yeah.
like everyone does not have to like food photography aside. It just really, if I see someone that is not like they dread going to work
Yeah.
or they're just not feeling fulfilled, like that is like a red flag for me to like, okay, let's get at that. Like what needs
Hmm.
to change to help you feel great about your life. And that kind of happened throughout a process of like my husband changed his career 7 times in about 10 years. Uh,
What?
yeah, right? The
And
extreme.
I thought I hopped around a lot.
Yes. And Joni, it was because he saw how happy I was in my career every day.
Yeah.
And um, like regardless of like money or whatever, I would do it because I just love it.
Yeah. Did he
He
finally find something he loves?
yeah, he's a patent lawyer. So if you have any inventions, drop me a line. But yeah, like he finally figured out because he had an engineering background and then like he bounced around from job to job. It doesn't, but he realized he really liked knowing how things worked and like
Yeah.
that more than the actual engineering part. So that tied in with that and whatever. So he's very happy now, which is great, such a relief, right? But like
Good.
to be that encouraging person that can help, like not discourage, right? Like you just
Right.
need to stay in your job. You need to make money and figure it out. Like that's not what life
Right.
is about, right?
Right. If
Finally,
somebody comes to me and they want me to photograph a product on a white sweep, I'll say, I know so many other photographers who are great at that. It's just not what I get into that doesn't light my wick. So I'm happy to make a referral.
absolutely. And to get to that point where you can turn down the
Yeah.
jobs you don't want to, like that's
Yeah.
ultimately the goal too for us. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it. All right, and so then number 5, and I love this, and I wholeheartedly back this too, is that food photography is COVID proof. What
Oh,
what was your proof of this through the summit?
proof through the summit is that it's amazing to me how many people were coming from different areas of photography
Hmm.
because they they lost all their wedding clients for the year or they're going months without any income because like fashion work even like there's
Hmm.
certain productions that couldn't be done now have started to pick back up but still like very um like in the cities like places are shut down like and they're
Hmm.
not hiring so and especially they're not hiring like freelancers to come in because they're just doing like the bare minimum and because of COVID. So what was interesting about the summit is like there was so many people coming from that those directions that and that fell in love with food photography
Mhm.
and that have realized it's their passion. And it's just so amazing to me. And I also want to say too, like there's so many brands are looking for great images, and it's like not going away, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the more the merrier, right? The more quality we can get out there, like the better. So I'm just like excited about the summit that way, but also um, because you can shoot remotely.
Yeah.
I personally have gotten more clients since COVID. I don't know if that
Yeah.
is same worldwide, but because we're able to shoot for people and we can Zoom and whatever and connect that way. And um, like you don't have to live in the city, so
Yeah.
it's more available for people now
Yeah.
than it was.
More than ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, I feel like, people get afraid thinking, oh, there's so, right. Like, I mean, clearly from the summit, there's so many food photographers, right? You would go, oh gosh, what am I thinking? Like getting into this industry where there's so many people. But I would say also in terms of like, world history, right? That
Um,
never or has there ever been such a demand for food photography and more food photography and not, because I mean, you've been in this industry a while, a long time, and the maybe brands used to shoot just a couple times a year and have sort of like this very specific stock of images. Now with the way the internet moves and digital media moves, like they need shoots more regularly. So there is more work to go around. Maybe the
right,
pricing is different, maybe the scope is different, productions are different, but there is definitely more demand than there has ever been. So being able to take on that work is a great thing. And I echo what you've said. I mean, I've in terms of clients, it's been super busy since
mm-hmm.
COVID. And, people say, oh, well, it's because you've got a YouTube channel or an Instagram or whatever. And we talked about this with Ty Turner a couple weeks
Oh
ago on
yeah,
YouTube, is that most of my leads are not coming off of YouTube and Instagram. They're coming off of more traditional referrals and connections
yeah,
and pitches and a lot of those more traditional methods
yeah,
that I encourage in terms of getting people in. So you don't need to have however many people on YouTube or however many people on Instagram. You've just got to do the work of
yeah,
pitching and marketing yourself in more traditional methods because those
right.
still work today. Is that, I mean, how do you find, this is a question that comes up all the time and I'm sure you get it all the time, Jenna, is what's like your number one go-to way to get new clients?
It is networking,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like I said before, I wasn't clear that I was doing it in the past, but
Yeah.
definitely.
What does that look like for you, networking? Is
Okay,
that
I'm
like
gonna
picking
actually.
up the phone and calling new people? Is that emailing people?
No, it's actually just being in tune to like people in your life at this moment in time and developing like really strong relationships with them because of your common interests. And sometimes it will come through later on. So a story that I wanted to mention that also goes back to the summit,
Yeah.
and it involves networking in two different ways. So I just shot a national campaign that I'm just like so thrilled to be a part of. And first of all, that um, creative director thought of me because in 2011, I was working for a company that he was running the photo studio. So, like just being around people, and he was also one of those people like I would email my portfolio to all the time and just be like, hey, I would love your feedback on this, please do that, like just do that, right? Because that's the only way you're going to improve. So faster, I would say, the
Yeah.
fastest. But so he called me up like a month ago and was like, Jenna, you're doing some amazing things. I got the shoot coming up, and it was actually for a clothing line. So this happened to me a couple of times because I've worked at Kohl's. I have a lot of connections within like the clothing line fashion industry.
Yeah.
So when they want to start introducing food, I'm kind of like their first thought. So because he also followed the blog, he like when we were talking on the phone, he like mentioned this blog post that I did, and he's like, that cranberry bog post you did with like you shot the scenery, you shot the food, and then you also had like images of he said the old lady holding the recipe card, who was my grandma.
Ah,
It was like the old lady holding the recipe card. He's like, we need that for our, our 2020 holiday campaign. And I was like, awesome, I'm your girl. Let's go. And so that was tremendously awesome because that was something that it took years, like I don't like so many years to actually like fi- him to find an opportunity that made him think of me. But
yeah,
that'll happen. Like it has happened in the past too, but that was just like the most recent on top of mind. But also, because we were being flown to like Montana at this like really cool resort, I was like, okay, so who? I was thinking, racking my brain about like who do I want to work with that I don't usually get to work with because it could
yeah.
be worldwide. So I went to a few, Jeff Martin and
Oh
El
yeah.
Simone Scott from the summit to see if they would be interested, and they were both busy. So, but Elle recommended someone that she actually met at the summit networking session. We had like a big Zoom call.
Oh yeah. It was
Yeah.
like 200 people. It was crazy. I was like, what? We're gonna do this right now. Oh my gosh, Jenna.
Yeah, so I'm just so excited that Elle met her at the Zoom call, Jillian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because Elle couldn't do it, she's like, I have full faith in Jillian. I've been talking to her like every week since the summit,
Wow.
and like she would do an amazing job. And so I booked her. I booked Jillian, and she did do an amazing job. Jillian
Yeah.
Atkinson, if you want to go
Great
look her up.
styling.
Yeah, great food
Where is
styling.
she based?
New York.
Excellent.
Yeah, so so everyone was coming from all over the place, and so
Yeah.
anyway, great job. But that networking session was something more current, right? That's a more intentional networking that you can do now versus like something that you're just planting seeds that you may not be aware of. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it is.
yeah.
It's totally how those little seeds of networking and connections, like,
Mhm.
I network with, and well, I mean, I wouldn't call it networking. It's just I'm friends with local food bloggers, right? Who I've gone to events with over the years and connected with. And well, one of them, I mean, I met her, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, but about a year ago, reached out because she was writing a cookbook, and that's why I got hired for that job. It's because those connections that you'd made just connecting with people who are interested in what you do. So the
Yeah.
same way, I love that the summit and what you're doing is providing a platform just to connect with and get to know people
Mhm.
who enjoy the same thing, and so that when opportunities come up, like, you need a stylist, well, guess what, you've got a whole laundry list now of amazing stylists and those referrals.
Right.
It's so powerful. So for those who are on the call right now, just seek out those opportunities to connect
Mhm.
with people who are like-minded, who are in your same industry, who get into what you get into, because you just never know what,
Right.
I mean, I went to a food blogger conference and that turned into connections that I got hired for other jobs that weren't
Yeah.
directly connected to those people, but
Yeah.
it's a
And
small
it
world.
could be, yeah, it is a small world. And I will say too, like it could be as simple as an Instagram message to someone. I have
Mhm.
another sample story because you just had Betty on. So I actually was like, I wanted to like be more connected with people in the industry. So I was DMing people on Instagram, just like to find out more about them and how like what's going on. So
Yeah.
anyway, I love stem and forks, and
Yeah.
I messaged Betty and I was like, hey Betty, I love your work. Like, where are you from? And she's like, Canada. And she's like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Wisconsin. And she's like, oh no kidding, I'm doing a retreat in Wisconsin. And
What?
yeah. And then so I signed up for the retreat. And
It's
then
amazing.
yeah, and then I met her. It was awesome. She's so amazing. And then also some other speakers were like about Pinterest managers. And then one girl had a sister that was a Pinterest manager. So I was like, oh yeah, I definitely need to hire that out. Like that's not something I want to spend my time doing. So like, I'm going to hire that out. And then they recommended me, she was full. So then she recommended me to Dama.
Oh,
And yeah.
and now you found Dama, who you and
Yeah.
Dama are, for those who don't know, Dama is really like the behind the scenes
Oh,
making it happen. She also helped to moderate the big networking session that we referenced. 200 people on a Zoom. Was it 200 people?
Yeah, it was about 200 people.
200 people in a Zoom call and then breaking out into breakout rooms. Jessica just said it was like a roulette game. It was like, who
Yeah,
knows who you're talking with?
if it's the same Jessica, I met Jessica she was in one of my groups. So she was awesome.
That
Great
was
question.
amazing. I love it. Well, something you referenced earlier that I'm so excited, and I want you to tell us a little bit about what you're doing, because obviously you learned so much going through. I mean, and first of all, let's all just give, like, I don't know how we can do virtual claps in the comment section, but the amount of work and energy and courage that it took for you to put together that summit was just incredible. I mean, something of that. Um, Scale, and for your first time doing it, I was just like, my hat's off, I'm not worthy, thank you so much for doing that. So for those of you who are in the comment section, let's clap it up for Jena, because Jena and Dama, and everything you did to coordinate that summit was absolutely incredible. But it's not going to just end there, because like any great thing, we rip off the band-aid, you do the thing.
Mhm.
And now I get the sense that you are charged up and fired up even more now than ever to continue to provide more education and more networking and more opportunities for us all to grow and advance in our industry. So tell us about. I've got a link down below to a live training that you're doing. Can you tell
Mhm.
us more about what you got in store for us?
Yeah, I've been totally energized by the summit and yeah, just for the past few years, thinking about how I can take my experience and help others in their journey. So I have put together a presentation for next week, Thursday. You can apply below in the link.
Mhm.
And we're going to go over um, three pillars to really make your portfolio unstoppable and book those clients that actually need you. So we really break it down how the portfolio is going to make you more money once you get all like these three frameworks down. Um, yeah, it can be a really powerful way to really advance you in the world of food photography.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I think a lot of us too don't realize the value, like we've talked about. They don't realize the value of your portfolio. So we talk about like pricing and like all the voice, all of the things that you need
Yeah.
to make that portfolio and do it like sooner rather than later.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
the details to that are all linked down below, littlerustedladle.com/apply.
Mhm.
And so people can hop on that. So your recommendation for people who are here, because I'm sure we've got, kind of all experience levels with us here today. Would you recommend that people who already have an online portfolio apply, or is it also for people who are thinking about creating their first portfolio?
Oh, both, definitely. I
Okay.
think because a lot of times too, like in the way the world is today, I think they're creating and then posting on Instagram and calling that a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely people can have an abundance of work, but no like clear portfolio to stand alone. So
Right.
definitely all are welcome to apply.
All levels. Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'll be such a great resource. So thank you for doing that. So hopefully you guys have all found that down below. Awesome. Okay, well, I think I've got Paul. Let's see. Paul, you there? Paul? Oh, he's already got comments coming in for me. So we've already gone over an hour. So we'll just do a couple minutes here, because I've actually got a magazine coming in a little bit and we're going to do some stuff. So I got to make sure to clear out for that. But um, that being said, we've got some good questions coming in. So MKA wants to know, Jena, what lens do you tend to use the most?
Ooh, I love this question because I have a lens that I use the most and I have a favorite lens and they're not the same one. So my favorite lens, well, she has the lens I use the most. So I'm going to say it 100 millimeter macro. I use it the most. It's the most versatile. I love to get really tight into my shots and I almost can do everything with it as long as I got a ceiling high enough. I can probably do it.
You just got to get those overheads at 100 millimeter. You're like, oh, she's up on the roof. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm in the right space, I do that. So
Yeah,
um,
that's
uh,
awesome. So that's your most
that's my
used
most
one.
used. I will say use then the two other lenses that I use. The 50 millimeter, I have a Sigma Art lens 1.4, I think it is. That's a
Okay.
beautiful lens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my absolute favorite lens is the Canon 85 millimeter 1.2. And
Oh,
those, oh, I love that lens. It's great for portraits. It's great for, you know, like including, people with food, with the lifestyle stuff. But also, I use it a lot for like a hero image.
oh,
So
okay.
if it's not going to be an overhead image, because the way the focal length is, if you go up, you need to be really, I just don't do it. But use your 50 for that. And that's really the only reason I use my 50, unless I really need a lot of atmosphere. Then
Is for the overheads is the 50?
yeah. And then my 85 is more for 45-degree angles or looking straight into, but those are
Yeah.
85.
I have
Beautiful.
never shot an 85, but I know there are so many big fans like Caitlin James, who's a wedding photographer
Yes.
whose work I love and who definitely is an inspiration to me in the education space.
Yeah.
She is a hardcore 85 fan. That's like her favorite. So I maybe at some point I'll get my act together and
Yeah.
I'll
Well, it's amazing. I love it. There are some difficulties that come with it. Like it's really slow to focus in darker lighting. So it's amazing, but it's also a little harder to use. I
yeah.
will
Well,
say that.
there's no such thing as the perfect camera or the perfect
Right.
lens in
Yeah.
all situations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. All right, let's see. What advice do you have for a photographer trying to start their business to get experience under this current economy? How do you price yourselves in the context of if you're still a beginner?
Right. So make sure you're doing research, like the link you're going to share, Joni, and I'll have some pricing in my training, but also
Yeah.
just whatever you think you're going to charge more than that, basically. Like I think
Okay.
everyone undervalues what they're doing, or they don't realize the usage that's involved in it, right? So um, we tend to always do that, and we've talked about pricing a little bit already, but like
Yeah.
we'll price more than what you think, and also do research on what other people are pricing in your similar field. And yeah, and it depends on what you're going after. Like I can give you very specific advice if you have a very specific estimate you're trying to make, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is there's so much variety and nuances between every single job. It's very hard to just say like, here's my rate sheet. I
Right.
personally don't do that. I have like no, you tell me what you need. I'll tell you how long it will take, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
how much it costs. Like
Yep.
it's not.
It's like somebody says, I want you to build me a house. And you go, great. How big a house do you want? Do you want marble countertops? Do you want formica? What do you want? Wood floors? Do you want polish? Like you got to know all the
That's
things that
a great
go in.
way to
And
yeah.
so I actually just dropped a link to the guide that I think is a great jumping off point to give some context to what Jenna and I are referencing here. So that is in the chat right now, and I'll be sure to add it in the description box. But I think that'll be but I think you hit on something that's key in that for the folks who are sort of beginning is
Mhm.
that if you feel comfortable with the number you're presenting somebody, it's too low. I can
Yep.
guarantee you. You should always be uncomfortable.
Yes. I know. I almost said that, but I was like, oh,
You should be.
I could do
Absolutely. I will send numbers and I go, it's just like the same way that I do when I send pitches, right? Is I write it all up and I read it a million times and I obsess over it and I think, oh gosh, what am I doing? And then at a certain point, I get over myself, I shut my eyes and I hit send. That's all I
yeah.
do. So just if you're not afraid, you're not doing it right. Be afraid and do it anyway and do it on purpose.
Yeah. Awesome advice. I love it.
All right, let's see. Oh, okay. So Maria asked, "How do you find your style in photography?" I would say join Jena in your
Yeah.
training that you're doing, right?
Yeah, come apply, be part of it, and we'll go over some stuff. Yeah, for sure.
That's going to be helpful for you. I love it. So that's linked down below. So be sure to grab that. Rachel wants to know if you have a shoot with a larger budget that covers stylists and extra props, do you keep the props or do they go back to the client? And Rachel,
I,
that is not a dumb question. That is an
it's
excellent
not.
question.
It's an awesome question. It's a totally awesome question because I've asked the same question when I was first starting out. My first invoice I wrote, I was like,
Yeah.
I get to keep it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get to keep it. Even though this is the way the world works or estimates work in general. Like you definitely if they ask for it back, you can give it back. Obviously, you don't want to make a weird situation. So
Right.
sometimes it's a case by case basis, and sometimes it's like clear to them, like they have no need for it other
Right.
than you shooting with it, and that's it, and they don't care about it otherwise.
Right.
So, and that I would say is most of the case.
Yeah.
So I've done it both ways, and I've even done it for both ways for the same client. It's just like, um, if they want to keep it for other reasons, like they do trade shows and they would like it for a prop for a trade show, like that would make sense. Or,
Yeah.
I bought coffee tables where they're just like, I have no room for this. I don't need it. Like,
Yeah.
just keep that. So, I mean, it's on a case by case basis, but also, you could probably keep it.
Yeah. And I've done shoots too. This is, I mean, I think like you said, it's a case by case basis and it
Yeah.
really depends. Um, this is not the norm, but there have been a handful of shoots where we've purchased the things and then returned them after the fact,
Yeah. That's,
which I don't know how I feel about, but that is a practice. You'll find that I think maybe more on the agency side of things, that if you're
mm,
working with an agency that sometimes and to a lot of times maybe with like wardrobe stylists and people like that. So
wardrobe.
it just kind of all depends, but just asking the question, ask the client what they want to do with it. But that is definitely how I have added a lot more to my own personal props collection, and I've got to thank you too, Jenna.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, one last question here. Let's see. Well, we'll do two. This one will be quick. Okay. Amelia wants to know the camera tripod. Would you say a camera tripod is essential to you,
Yeah.
Jenna?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%
Yeah.
essential. Yes.
Yeah. I
Especially
love it.
if you're doing food. Yeah. If you're doing more lifestyle, then you can come off the tripod. But otherwise, there's no reason to not start with a tripod at least. Like I will do a shoot on the tripod and then I'll take it off the tripod and do a lot more stuff. But
Sure.
that's just kind of how I work. But definitely you're gonna have to have a tripod to start.
Yeah. I just popped an article into the feed, everybody, that is, to me, it's the best comprehensive guide about tripods related to food
Hmm,
photography,
awesome.
from Rachel at Two Love Studio. It is like, I always say, I don't think I'll ever do anything on tripods because I feel like I would just do what Rachel did and she's already done it. So you can just read Rachel's guide, which is super duper helpful. Okay, so last question. What's your favorite strobe for food from Sue O'Brien?
My favorite. I would say, my favorite is actually, well, I've used my favorite in certain studios, but it's not like real life situations. Like most people cannot afford them. Carl
Mhm.
Taylor does afford
Right.
them. But
I look at Carl Taylor's equipment and I go, I just see dollar signs and I go,
yeah. Oh,
wow.
yeah. So, for major studios that I shoot for, we do use brown color, and that's the top of the line. Now, that's kind of unheard of
Mhm.
if it's your own studio. So, my absolute favorite, like, is I think very most people wouldn't know, but
Mm.
it's an alien bee. I
Ah, alien
love,
bees.
yeah, and they are super duper affordable,
For
and it's
sure.
been like my one of my favorite lights for sure. And I use that with their 4-foot softbox.
Nice. 4-foot softbox on an alien bee. And I
Uh,
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is not all alien bees, but I believe that some of those units also have like an action setting so that it's even shorter flash duration
yeah,
so
yeah,
that you can do even cooler stuff in terms of action.
yeah. Those are the Einstein
Oh, the
models.
Einstein.
Yeah,
Good old Paul C. Buff right there.
heck yeah. I was introduced to him at my like first photography course, not him personally, like
Oh,
his
I was like, you met
car.
Palsy Buff? What?
No, introduced to his like lighting back when I was in college, and then it just seemed like, okay, I'm gonna like I was right out of school. I'm honest to God, I am using the same light I bought right out of college,
Yeah,
and I don't even think I changed out the flash bulb. Like, honest
really.
to God, this thing is like it's probably gonna quit on me tomorrow. Now that I say this, but like,
Dang it. You
well, I
just
thought
jinxed it, Jenna.
no, I mean, what anything can happen, and it's fine, but like, it's
Yeah,
just as simple as changing a light bulb. But this thing has been through so much. Like it's been
yeah.
through location shoot upon location shoot, and like it's still like kicking. Like
That's
yeah,
awesome. That
yeah,
is
it's
awesome.
really
Well worth the investment. Well, I don't want to tie up any more of your time. I know it's been a great conversation, and I'm sure everybody here has enjoyed it. And I just want to thank you so much, Jenna, for everything that you're doing and providing to this industry. And for those who haven't or who have just joined us, there will be a replay of this afterward. After we finish up, YouTube will do its magical little thing and post it up on the internet so you can replay if you missed any parts of it. But be sure to hop down below. I've got all the links to the training that Jenna's doing, as well as her Instagram, so you can follow her. And then I think I've also linked down there information on the summit, because the summit, I've got to think we will have now a second annual coming up.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's not going away. It was I was blown away by the energy within it, and definitely going to keep that continuing. So
I love
thank you
it.
everyone for who showed up to the summit, and just everyone in the food photography industry. Just thank you for being like so amazing and positive, and I appreciate you.
I
And Joni,
appreciate you.
thank you.
Of course. And thank you to Paul too for taking notes for us today. It takes a village, y'all. We have got a team going on here, crack team of experts. So awesome. Well, everybody, you have a fantastic day, and we will be back. I am actually, fun story, I'm going to be back here live next week, same time, with B Lobus, and we are going to be celebrating here on YouTube the release of the US release of her new
Yeah.
book, all about food photography. So I'm going to be interviewing B about her book and celebrating its upcoming US release. I know that all of us are watching everybody in Europe getting their copies and just
Oh,
feeling super jealous.
yeah. I was like, B, what is up with this? Why can't I order this?
I need my US copy. So they are coming soon, and we're going to talk to B all about it and get her insights as well. So uh, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenna. Everybody take care.
All right. Thanks so much, Joni.